So as I'm sure all of you know, Xianyun has been revealed, and without a doubt, she is one of the most interesting characters we've got in a while. She's so different from other characters, her kit is very unique, so much so that she has the very real possibility of changing Genshin's meta significantly. So in this video, we're gonna talk about Xianyun, who she pairs with, how she affects Genshin, and my thoughts on her. But before we can talk about her, it's important to understand what she can do, so let's go over that. Xianyun's skill is an ability that will allow her to leap in the air up to 3 times. While in the air, Xianyun can attack enemies, and this attack will group enemies, as you can see here. This attack seems as though it's a plunge attack, which is important for later. But I gotta say, this attack looks amazing, and I'm sure we can all agree. The way that she leaps in the air looks really fun, as does her final attack. But on top of looking really cool, you can see that with her skill, Xianyun travels a great distance in the air. So it appears that on top of having a fun skill to attack with, you can have a cool new way to traverse the new map, of which I gotta say also looks really good as well. I'm really looking forward to admiring the beauty of this new area while exploring as Xianyun. Anyways, when it comes to her burst, this is when things get a bit broken. Xianyun's burst will heal her entire party, which isn't anything new but will allow her to be paired with Farina, which is great. But most importantly, it will give her team the ability to jump high such that they can easily plunge attack. This ability lasts for a while, so your team can repeatedly perform plunge attacks, and the crazier thing is that Xianyun will actually buff plunge attacks as well. Last but not least, when a unit plunges, Xianyun will deal AoE animal damage to them. Now judging her kit, unless there aren't any last minute changes to it, to be honest I would say it's pretty broken. Just the fact that Xianyun solves the problem of plunge attacks is a big deal on its own. Normally you'd never perform plunges with certain units unless you're in a very specific situation, say you're on top of a geo construct or you're next to a hill you can jump down from. Now with Xianyun, you can plunge attack effortlessly. It's as simple as jumping and then plunging. So this is an exceptional ability she has, and as I'm sure you all know, plunges are very strong. If at times you've been able to plunge attack with your DPS, you'll see they deal a lot of damage. This is because plunge attacks have very high scalings. So for a unit to actually make use of these great scalings they otherwise wouldn't be able to is a very big thing. This will massively increase the DPS units are able to put out. But the madness doesn't stop here, and honestly it goes a good bit further, since Xianyun will buff the damage of plunge attacks. So now not only are units able to tap into a high damage source they weren't able to, this being plunges, they perform buffed plunges at that. And this is crazy. This makes Xianyun what I would say a broken support, which can significantly change the way units and the game is played. Some of these units that can greatly benefit from Xianyun is firstly Xiao. When it comes to Xiao, honestly, he's in a very peculiar state. Though Xiao is already able to plunge attack on his own, it appears as though Xianyun will be his best, if not one of his best supports. As we've gone over, Xianyun buff his plunge attacks, which is very important for Xiao, plus she will apply healing, which Xiao does need since he'll be constantly losing his HP in his burst. So she pairs perfectly with Xiao, but the odd thing is that Xiao already has a dedicated animal support, this being Faruzan. Faruzan greatly increases Xiao's damage due to the fact that she applies animal res to enemies and due to her C6, which is broken for obvious reasons. So Xiao before Xianyun was already in a really good position. He already had a dedicated artifact set and a dedicated support, but now with Xianyun it appears as though he has another broken support to pair him with. At first glance this might seem pretty unnecessary since Xiao already has Faruzan, so what's the point of Xianyun then? But of course it's not as though you can only choose between either support. You can combine the two supports with Xiao in a team, and as for the damage that Xiao will deal in this team, honestly, I don't want to talk about it. There's no denying that it'll be broken, which really has me scratching my head because he already dealt great damage, so to give him another support to make him even stronger, honestly, I don't know. I think it's clear to see which unit is the developer's favorite. That's all I can say. So Xiao has gotten an upgrade even though he didn't need one, but there's one unit that many players will say he does, that being Diluc. Now glancing over the fact that the developers actually nerfed Dragon Strike, Xianyun does bring Dragon Strike back. For those that don't know, Dragon Strike was a technique players would perform that would cause Diluc to jump higher than normal, and thus he'd be able to plunge attack. The developers noticed this and fixed the bug causing Dragon Strike, and after fixing it, they're now asking for 180 wishes so that you can do what was once free. Jokes aside, Diluc can greatly benefit from Xianyun. The reason why has to do with Diluc's kit. A common complaint of players with Diluc is that he doesn't hold to the DPSs we have today, and a good reason for this is because of his skill. Diluc's skill is his main source of damage. Despite this, his skill scalings aren't significantly different from that of his normal attacks, of which aren't as important as his skill. This of course is a big deal, since if an ability is a main source of damage, it should naturally have higher scalings to distinguish it from other abilities and to make your main damage source deal more damage. If your main damage source deals the same amount as less important damage sources, this of course is problematic. Xianyun solves this by enabling for Diluc to Dragon Strike or Plunge Attack instead of using his skills. This will make him deal much higher damage than before, so it'll solve his problems and make him feel more akin to recent DPSs. And really, this point applies to any DPS that's seen as bad or not as good as other DPSs. Now that units are able to plunge attack, their damage output will be much higher than before. The last noteworthy unit for Xianyun is herself. If I'm right about Xianyun's skill being a plunge attack, then she can make use of her plunge attack buff and use it for herself. With how high Xianyun travels with her skill, I'm sure it's a plunge attack, and if it is, then Xianyun can be played as a sort of DPS instead of support, where you apply her plunge attack buff, then you use her skill, and then plunge as much as possible with her burst. This is probably not her most optimal build, and of course we actually don't know her scalings, but this can be a build that can be played nonetheless. This has been my take on Xianyun so far, of which has been positive, but now I want to talk about things that confuse me. So we've gone over how she's gonna make units constantly plunge attack, but I find it very odd that units will just be plunge attacking with her. Like, imagine Ito, right? Ito wants to use his abilities, you want to normal attack with him, so he'll gain his charge attack stacks, same with the skill, as well as to deal some damage, and then you want to charge attack with them, right? But if you're playing him with Xianyun, is he supposed to throw all of these moves away and simply plunge attack? So no skill, no normal attack or charge attacks, just plunging in his burst form. I feel like that's really weird, probably because I am used to playing him the normal way, but also because these abilities are very important to his kit, so to not use them and throw them away feels wrong. But it also begs the question of, is it even worth to just plunge attack? Should a unit just simply plunge attack the entire time, or should they also incorporate some of their abilities with plunge attacking? Like, should Ito plunge attack, and then when his skill is ready, you use his skill, and then plunge attack again? I don't know. I guess we won't know until she releases and is tested, but this does bring up the point that Xianyun definitely won't be for everyone, since they're just not meant to plunge attack and are better played the way that they're meant to be originally played. Here Raiden comes to mind, since her entire purpose lies with her burst. That's where you deal all of her damage, which you can do by plunges, but certainly you're not going to be able to batter your team if you don't normal attack with their burst. And being a battery is an important function of Raiden, and like half of the reason why she's really good. So Xianyun's inclusion is a really good one, but it brings a lot of important questions to ask, and the point that not every DPS will be applicable to her. Anyways, these are my pre-release thoughts on Xianyun. I hope you enjoyed them, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing, as well as telling me what you think of her. Will you be pulling for her, or any other of the units that are getting a rerun in the next patch? And with that, thank you all for watching, take care, and thank you all once again.